I do a lot of extra coursework because I want to catch up to the kids in my school. Because right now, I'm in the most competitive public school, at least in state, right? Machine learning has not really been fully implemented in medical settings yet. What I mean by that is there's still, especially in most hospitals, there's literally zero ML. And there's definitely a lot of areas in which it could be easily applied. The most evolution I've seen in ML is definitely fitness apps. So I use my fitness pal every day, and I think that's probably a great example.
What particular advice would you give to someone who wants to, stand out from other, competitors?
First thing you need is to show that you're the top 1% skill wise, right?
Guys, before we get into the podcast, 91.6% of you guys are not subscribed. So please do hit the subscribe button since it will help get even crazier guests and blow up the channel. So yeah, let's get back into the video.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Gen Z Fastlane. Today we have a big fan of the Gen Z Fastlane here, Vihaan, who is one of my friends in the CMU pre-college. So yeah, Vihaan, why don't you do a short introduction of yourself?
Hi, I'm Vihaan. I'm studying AI at Stanford and comp sci and data science at CMU right now. And I'm a student at Interlake High School in the IB diploma program, the accelerated IB program. And my passions are medical ML. I also play sports like water polo, which I'm varsity on, and other passions like the gym and hanging out with friends, stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically who I am. I do ML and I like to have fun.
Nice. So just starting off, how's your overall experience been at CMU past couple weeks?
I think there's definitely pros and cons. So pros are definitely the network. I think the best thing here I found is important people. There's kids here who have really strong connections or really good research projects or really good positions. I own a nonprofit and a lot of them I've had the ability to hire or get positions at my nonprofit, which is really nice because normally it's very hard to find good applicants, especially applicants who are genuinely talented at what they say they're talented at, because you don't have direct experience with them in person. And also, I want to build a team with people who I genuinely know as people, because I don't believe in the idea that someone in the workforce is completely different than someone in their personal life, right? I think there's definitely a connection there. And I think the connection is definitely not what people would expect. I think there's an inverse connection. I think the people who are the most unserious in general circumstances are the most committed when it comes to work. It's kind of like me too. I'm pretty unserious when it comes to most things socially, which is why people don't really expect me to be that serious about my work. But there's a quote, it's a Clint Eastwood quote that I think is really influential. It's basically, it goes, take your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And I think that's a quote I kind of live by. If you know me, you know what I mean. I'm a really unserious person, but I can take my work super seriously, and I work really hard and I get stuff done. So I think basically networking has been really good here, but other than that, it's pretty, I don't know, it's kind of mid, bro. The schools, the education here is not as good as I expected, I guess. It's the fundamentals class is just APCS. It's all APCS material. I already passed APCS, I got a 5, and it's pretty much useless to me now. A lot of it is just to me, it comes intuitively. So I don't get bad scores on anything. Homeworks, my homework average is 100, my quiz average is 96, 97 or something.
Right.
And it's other than that, I don't really it's I don't know. I wish that I would have taken 122, 127, which is principles of engineering, computation, and the core requisite math class. And those are apparently the hardest class offered at summer session, which is the program I'm taking right now. If whoever's watching doesn't know, it's a program where you can take 2 college courses. And apparently it's the only 2 hard courses in summer session. And I think having been on college, I have to get A's in those classes. So I think I'm planning on coming back next year and taking those maybe. But I mean, right now the thing is the coursework that I'm taking does not really look that impressive, because the college knows that the coursework is super easy and there's nothing challenging about it, and it's kind of a breeze, which is not, it's it seems good, right? But in reality, it's not good, because on college apps and 2 influential people who actually know the coursework, it's just gonna look super bad that, oh, I went to take super prestigious program just to take the easiest classes there, basically. Which is why I tried to avoid some classes too, there's this one class there, AI for Humanities. I know Vostos in it, and I asked people around. Like, I got some connections with Water in summer session, and what I heard from that class is that like, while the people in it are super dedicated to AI, the actual coursework and like especially the teachers and stuff are not super like professional in AI, which kind of did get confirmed for me this year by people in the class. I asked people, they said the teacher whose name is like Ting Su. Apparently, she's not even an AI teacher, she's like a Chinese teacher or whatever. So
Yeah.
and I try to avoid those classes, but I still ended up in two pretty easy classes, which I don't like. Other than that, connections are good though, and that's always a good thing. So yeah.
Yeah. So growing up, how did you fall in love with the topic of, AI and machine learning?
Actually, I didn't really. Okay, so I grew up in a place with like super low access to technology. I grew up in rural India, and I didn't really know about CS for the longest time. But what I did know about, I did want to pursue medics. I do medical AI now, but I did want to pursue medics because where I grew up has super horrible access to healthcare. Like, there's been like several times where I like got extremely sick and like could have like gone like permanent lung damage or even in some like worst case scenarios I could have died at like a really young age, and that's like always like a harsh motivator to just start like pursuing these things in the places where you can't find them, right? Like growing up not like fully economically stable, always like kind of you get like the drive to pursue just like better technology because if you're like if that's accessible to you, it's a lot better to pursue that than to not pursue it, right? And I've begun to do that myself with AI, and I started doing AI because of like ChatGPT basically. I like used ChatGPT once. I was like, wow, this is influence. Like, this is crazy, right? And I just jumped straight into it. I took a program from Inspire AI. I got in because of like a lot of programs for me. It's like when I don't have a lot of experience, like easier programs I do get into often because I have like a lot of good influential stories to use from my past, right? And now I've been getting into more influential programs because of my like research work, because of my like other stuff. So like I did that program, created this like AI model that detects fake news, and then I just started like kind of working on. I right out of it, I was like, okay, like I can use ML binary classification to do brain stroke because like one of my uncles is a neurologist, and he said it was a problem that's like pretty unsolved, right? By like machinery, and I was like, oh, like I could immediately problem solve that. Like I immediately started doing research. At first, I used a 2D convolution, which is basically it convolves over a 2D image, and I got 1.0 accuracy, but the thing is, like the model wasn't like fully fit to all brains because like the data set I had was not great at the time, and I switched it out for a new data set with 3D variance scans instead. Basically, it was like a lot more like generalized across the whole population. Even though it only had 60 patients, it was a lot more generalized. And like, I got all these data sets off Kaggle, by the way. So if anyone watching is trying to do AI research, Kaggle is a really good resource for data sets. And I just started doing 3D convolutions on them. And eventually I trained like a really good model. I have 96 accuracy currently. I'm trying to train to 1.0 val and test. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So like, my advice to like people doing AI is basically just pounce on whatever opportunity you have because like we live in a world where opportunities don't come to us easily, right? Like I think it's super stupid to like have like the ability to like do AI research on something crazy and like have people near you good at AI or have like resources to like study AI and you just don't. Or like if you like or whatever you're pursuing, honestly, if you have resources to be able to like further yourself in it and you just choose not to, that's like kind of stupid to me personally. So just be opportunistic and you're gonna see results eventually.
Yeah, 100%. So like in terms of the, diving more into the medical machine learning field, what do you think are some of the biggest areas of, like the evolution in healthcare with machine learning right now?
I think machine learning has not really been fully implemented in medical settings yet. What I mean by that is like there's still, especially in most hospitals, there's literally zero ML, right? And like there's definitely a lot of areas in which it could be like easily applied, like super easily. But the thing is the medical field is a little bit against that, right? Because like That's like a doctor's whole job is like classifying that. And also if the model like screws up, like it's like hard to I don't know, it's hard for patients to empathize with it basically, right? Which is like it's like the social stigma against ML is also like a little bit of a problem for ML engineers, right? Like personally I've had work trying to grow access to medical diagnosis through ML, right? Which I do think would be a lot easier, but especially in like places that have low technological knowledge, like the trust of ML is a lot lower than doctors, even if the doctors aren't readily available, or even if their like jobs like super easily replaceable. But I think the most evolution I've seen in ML is definitely fitness apps. Like I think like apps like My or like other like applications that create workout routines for you, stuff like that. I use MyFitnessPal every day, and I think that's like probably a great example. It uses AI in like so many like really amazing ways. It classifies food. It's able to like estimate the calories of like a meal by scanning it, which is super helpful. And it like promotes fitness and health. And it lets people like hit dietary goals or like sports goals or whatever super easily. So I used it while I was training for water polo and stuff like that. I think that's the one place where like people in the public don't see it as like stigmatized, right? And it's more accepted by the public because they don't think it's like diagnosis or like something where a doctor would be needed. So they're more readily like available to take that advice. But like there's still a bunch of public stigma against medical ML in like hospital settings, which is why I think it hasn't like gone to the extent where it could yet. And maybe it just needs more time, honestly. But I mean, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna see a lot more of that too.
Yeah, so I think another big concern with like any machine learning model is that it's pretty expensive, like with simple chatbots and simple like MLs, probably cost like thousands of dollars. So how long of a time span do you think we will need to find like a more cost-effective solution?
I think it would only take like okay, with new optimization algorithms, right? It's like getting less and less expensive to run ML models, especially models that are like simpler. Like for example, like based on variables you're using WinReg or stuff like that, right? Those are like so much cheaper to run. And even the ones that are like hyper expensive to run, right? Like oh like it's like a tensor with like 8 million units or whatever. Like, oh, we can't run on L4, we can't run on A100, whatever. Like, you need a supercomputer, right? Even with those, like, we're getting so many more like optimization algorithms in ML, right? And I think we're at a point where like cost. First of all, cost does not matter like that much to like most ML engineers. I think like we care, but accuracy and other stuff like that matters. Like, certainly it matters a lot, right? But even when costs are like heavily increasing, I think like a bigger, I don't know, like bigger growth of the optimization field that we've begun to see like recently, and I think that is gonna keep growing. But like definitely make it like it will definitely reduce that issue of oh it's too costly or whatever. I think it's gonna be like mm, way cheaper than like especially hiring people, you know. Hiring doctors to do the same classification that an AI, first of all, it's a lot more time efficient with AI, right? And also, like, monetarily, doctors and other people who do the same tasks also, like, they do cost more than the AI models. Like, that's like a very, like, general statement, but that's probably true in like 90% of cases at least, right? So, like, I think I mean, honestly, if there wasn't like large stigma around it, and if there also wasn't confusion on how to implement it, I think it would be a lot like bigger in medical fields today, even. But I do think in the next 10 years we will see large growth of that.
Yeah, so in terms of like specific technology within AI ML, like different techniques, like which ones are you most excited for?
Most excited for, I think the growth of 3D convolution would definitely use right. I'm using some right now, and it is pretty good, but it's like 2D image like detailing and stuff. Everything that's been done to 2D has not been much 3D, right? Like 3D convolution is far behind 2D, and I think the reason for that is just because it's bigger. That's literally the only reason, right? Like it's like a lot more data, and it's a lot harder and more complex data to represent ML systems. Honestly, the growth of that would be pretty cool because like there's a lot of models I think could like progress like a lot, right? Like recently I heard on the Gen Z Fast Lane, I heard about this one model with scoliosis AI, right? My friend Brian made it. I think that's really cool. I think 3D convolution would like really, really take it a lot further because the thing is, like one scan of scoliosis could create bias within only that scan, right? And the thing is, generalizing that over a person's like range of scans would make it like a lot more, I don't know, it would make it a lot more easier to judge, right? Like that's just like a factor in data science. Like a larger sample size from the same group would like represent the group a lot better than only one sample. And it's just simple data science, but basically like 3D convolution would like make a lot of medical ML a lot more accurate, right? And it's like it's just not used often. Like people don't even know about it. There's no education about it. I learned about it through my AI mentor, but it's like the only places where you really learn it is like prestigious universities, and it should not be that hard to learn. Like it's super easy. It's like easy to implement. It's easy to use. It's like ML education is just like super vague right now. If you ask me, like you have to like take a part of like prestigious programs to get like a good, well-rounded, and like actually important ML education. Like I think the most important fundamentals I learned were not from like the free or like like the first few resources I had. Like I learned first from Coursera, right? And like I got certifications on that, and honestly, it was a lot like it's like way less useful than the Stanford class I took, right? And the reason for that is because Stanford has a lot more research. But right now, ML is so competitive that like a bunch of universities are just like not willing to share resources, right? Or like they're like not like willing to like just like make education more public. Which is what it will take time for that to happen. Like with CS, we've seen that happen, right? The Harvard CS 50 class became fully public recently. Well, not recently, it was a while ago, but you know, something like that. It's like out there like gatekeeping a lot less, I guess, which is nice. And ML hasn't seen that yet because it's so much newer and more competitive. So, I mean, I just want like ML education to be free. That's why my nonprofit also has an education sector where I do CS and ML education. And honestly, I just think that would be pretty huge for ML. And other than that, a growth of like 3D convolution and medics would be pretty big too. Because there's a lot of research about it.
Yeah. So talking more about, getting into these prestigious programs, what particular advice would you give to someone who wants to, stand out from other, I guess, like competitors, as you personally been to like Stanford program and the CMU program, which is literally like the top of the top.
Personally, I think my advice, like my best advice, honestly, is to like have a very sharp demonstration of skill. Like these programs, first of all, they care about your skill, right? Okay, well that's a bad piece of advice. So never mind. I take it back. Having your skills shown is super important though. I do agree, but everyone's doing that. It's like, okay, that's the first thing you need. The first thing you need is to show that you're the top 1% skill lines, right? Or like, at this point, just show that you're the top 0.1%. Like, what I had to do is like, I moved here recently, right? And I just started taking like really hard classes. IV AIHL2 in my freshman year. I taking AIHL2 now. It's like, and that's not offered at my school usually, right? But I did a bunch of extra coursework to be able to do it like a year earlier. And then further, I also took like a bunch of extra classes. I took IE biology in 2 weeks. I finished it in 2 weeks. I finished like algebra 2, all the math coursework I finished in like one summer. It's like, just like do extra work that would make your transcript stand out. Because the first thing, like, and these admissions officers look at is your transcript. And that's like by far. Like the first thing they're gonna do is go look at your transcript, right? Make sure you get straight A's, of course. Like that's like super normal, right? That's like basic acid advice, but like, wait, can I swear? Can I?
Yeah.
It's fine, right? Okay. That's like super basic advice, but like, get your A's, whatever. Have one sport. I think that's super important too. Like, you need a wide set of extracurriculars because these people who have like really strong transcript, right? Once you have a strong transcript, like you start just like getting thick. So the first thing they do is that they like collapse. It's like I'm like a little bit like ML coded right now in my head, but they classify these people, right? They classify as like yes and no, and the first classification never they use is like, oh, is their transcript like super strong? And if it's a no, you're immediately just kicked. Like they don't really like often they don't let you come in with like a low transcript. Like you're gonna see like if you look at like college stats, and go to CMU by the stats or like Harvard by the stats or whatever, you're gonna see like all their averages, medians, everything's in like a high 3.9. And like people often get like um they often get biased by looking at like, oh, but look, there's like 1 point all the way out there. It's like someone that accepted with a 2.0 GPA or something. Like their dad probably died of cancer the year before or something, right? Like you never know. And like honestly, that's probably the truth. Like the truth is like they definitely have some like crazy story or something crazy to stand out by that like you would never probably be able to get, right? And like the thing is like they get like a higher like range of like leniency than us, right? Basically. And it's also like I mean it's also based off like other characteristics. Like to increase diversity, like some certain races get a higher acceptance rate. Like Asian males have the least acceptance rate, right? And we're both Asian males, so like it's harder for us to stand out, especially because of the really high number of Asian males that also apply, right? But like you have to find advantages and differentiation where you can, I guess. So like start finding like your motivations in life and where they come from. Like trying to differentiate yourself based on that. Like I think for me personally, medical AI sprouting from a lack of like medical resources when I was younger is like a really good way for me to like show motivation, stand out, right? And it's like genuinely the reason I do a bunch of research too, which is like colleges like that too, because colleges like to see people who are actually gonna do like important work with the education they receive, and not just people who are like kind of like buy-ins from their parents, you know. So like try to make yourself stand out as someone who's genuinely interested. Because if you're not genuinely interested, don't go to college, you know. Like don't let your parents like basically just like tell you what to do or whatever. If you don't want to go to college, don't go to college. But personally, I want to go to college to learn them out, and I'm genuinely interested in it. And showing that to a college and showing like genuine reasoning in your life why, I think is a lot more important than having like how I like won this like international competition, because there's kids who apply to stay at SPCS who like were like the international like winner of like some like prestigious competition and didn't get in, and I got it. I think colleges now definitely want to see a lot more like need for education and a lot more like use that you're gonna get out of their education, because their like goal is ultimately to like have the biggest impact, right? Like which is why they hire like the most impressive people, and your goal is like to basically just show that you could create that impact. So find motivations, show them, like represent them in your things, like in your applications, show a high skill level wherever you can, like literally pounce on every opportunity and just make sure that you don't falter in any aspect. And also have a wide range of extracurriculars. That's super important. Like if you don't have a varsity sport, get a varsity sport. That's super important. If you don't have like any creativity outlet shown in your piece, get a creativity outlet. That's super important. Like personally, I started doing the visual arts, right? And I started doing it to widen my extracurriculars, because the thing is, especially with the UC systems, like UC Berkeley, right? And like UCLA, both are the two that matter to me. I don't really care about the others, but like UCB and UCLA both really care like a lot about you having a set of career arts in your transcript, right? And this is like very common advice that you could hear anyway, but people don't apply it. You should apply it. I took 3 years of visual arts, IB visual arts, and I think that has like created like a larger net for me to throw my extracurriculars into. Like it's like, oh, this is physical activity. I'm a varsity player on water polo arts. Like I'm an artist to like display pieces and stuff in our school, which is super hard to get in my school because my school is like hyper competitive. And I've like all these like classes on my transcript, right? And then I'm like accelerated in math. So like all of those are like a pretty important way to differentiate.
So moving on, talking about like your time management skills with so many different classes that you take, so many different extracurriculars. Like, how does your overall schedule look, and what's your strategy there?
Okay, I'll walk you through a day in like a day in my school year, right? I wake up at 7:50 and I'll shower and I'll go to school. I live pretty close by to the school, so I can just drive there really quick. Um, and I go to like I do all my classes and stuff. I come back home, right? Sometimes I'll go to tutorial. Tutorial in our school is basically like after school you can go 30 minutes studying whatever class. So I'll go to tutorial. I'll try to go to tutorial daily and work for like do my homework and classwork, like for whatever class I think is most important. I go home, I eat a second lunch, then I study for an hour. I go to the gym. I come back. I do my research work for an hour. I do my daily calls. I eat dinner. Then I'll like. I think this is really important thing that people miss out on. I just spend an hour like doing nothing. Like I spend an hour just doing whatever I want to do for the day. So often I watch like shows or stuff like that. But I think because I'm grinding so much in the hours that I'm not doing it, it is really important to have some period. Or like I'll call my friends or whatever. Like all the stuff that you want to do for fun. But I think it's really important to have a period in which you're not like spending your whole time studying basically. Like I think like having daily rest is super important, like mental rest. Because if you're just like grinding out the whole day and you don't get any mental rest, eventually you're gonna start getting like stressed and like overloaded, right? Especially if you have stuff like ADHD. I have ADHD, and it's like hard to like maintain focus daily if all you do is work. So I'll that's like my daily schedule. It's basically just like it's a bunch of sets of work and like managing other stuff, and then I have daily rest, like, and I sleep. And that's basically it.
Interesting. I think that's something probably I should like also include like the 1 hour of doing nothing because I
Mhm.
personally for myself I don't really have any daily rest, but I mean I enjoy what I do right now. I enjoy speaking to you. So
Yeah.
but talking about like the the IB course that you took like biology, how did you manage to like study the entire curriculum for 2 weeks?
Honestly, I think being resourceful is probably the most important thing. So I think a lot of people make the mistake of like thinking that the class is spread out over a year for a reason, right? And honestly, I think that reason is because most people can't pace themselves at like much faster paces. But personally, for me, I think I could pace myself pretty easily. And the way I do that is just by like being like really, really like memorizing like really, really often, right? So I have like a large set of breaks in which I'll write everything I learned in that last hour down on like a huge whiteboard. And then before erasing everything, I'll repeat it to myself and then I'll erase it, right? And I'll do that for every unit. So I did this for the AP Physics test as well. I took AP Physics and I studied for it in a total of I think it was 4 days, right? 4 to 5 days. I got a 5 on AP Physics, and that was super rare this year. I think it was like the 5%, like I mean the five, like the percentage of people who got a 5 was 7%, right? So it's like super. It's the lowest of all the AP tests, and basically like a lot of people don't get a 5, right? The average is like 3 or 2, I think. So basically, like, what I really did is okay. So I used Khan Academy to study for like most of it, right? And what I did is I paced myself to do a unit every 3/4 of a day. So 3/4 of a day I would do one unit, then the rest 1/4 I'd switch, and then I'd continue it like that, right? And I did that for the five major units in AP Physics. And then I left the last day for me to like study the whole thing. So I just did like a lot of practice tests. I think practice tests are super important too. If you're taking like IB tests, look at past practice tests. If you're looking at like the ACT, even ACT, SAT, right? Like for my ACT score, I got a 35 on the ACT on with like I literally only did 1 day of studying. And all I did in that 1 day, I did 5 different practice tests, right? And I only did half of each practice test because I know that there's variance between each test. So I split them into halves and I did half of 5 sided, like 2.5 tests technically, right? And I like did those every single like hour basically. And I like trained myself to like perfect my timing, right? Especially with ADHD, it's a lot harder to like get that perfect timing down. So I just trained myself to like perfectly get like every question in math a minute because it's 60 questions in 60 minutes. So I like I trained myself to do that. I trained myself to use the calculator more, and I just like did a lot of practices. I think that's probably the most important advice I have. Do as many practice tests as you can. Like if you're starting off and you think you know something, take a practice test, figure out how much you know, and then study everything that you don't. Right? Like find as many practice tests as you can. Be resourceful. That's probably my best advice.
Got you. So another follow-up question that I have is you take so many of these like extra courses outside. So like if you're comparing these extra courses to, time that you could have spent to develop, I guess, your, own AI model or, spent, in kind of like a more applicable, like real world manner, like
Mm-hmm.
what's your overall thoughts on that? Like, why would you spend more time on the courses? Like, do you think like, getting into that, doing that course will get you into like a better university? Like, is that like the main reason why you're doing the course or?
I do both. I think honestly, I just like I do a lot of extra coursework because I want to catch up to the kids in my school. Because right now I'm in the most competitive school, public school at least in state, right? And our school is one of 3 schools in the country that has accelerated IB. And me joining the school, I was the only person to join the accelerated IB program in the 10th grade. So it was like really, really like hard for me to like adapt at first, right? So I did a bunch of extra like coursework to be able to catch up and like get on like standard with these kids, right? Because like again, like I said earlier, if you don't show a similar skill level, because the first people your college compares you to is like your school, especially if you're in the American school system, right? If you're not in the American school system, I believe it is a little bit different, and they compare you to people from similar backgrounds, but because it's like rarer, except for if you're in like China. China has like 1,800 applications every year or whatever. So like it's like a little bit different. But if you're like international, not from like China or India, you're probably like gonna get compared to like whatever people come from your country. But like if you're in the American school system, you're definitely getting compared to your own school, right? Like that's like the biggest comparison. That's the first comparison you have to pass. And if that was like a worse transcript, you're gonna be just knocked, right? So like my biggest advice is to just like try to make an even playing field, right? But at the same time, I do think real world impacts like research, like creating actual like creating like a startup, nonprofit, all these things are more important. Which is why once I did, because now I think I'm ahead of them, most of them in coursework. So I've stopped doing coursework and I've started focusing more on research. So this summer I have a lot of progression with my research. I mean, I completely flipped my research from reaching like extremely low or like not like applicable models, right? Or like neural networks that wouldn't connect to the original data. I've like completely flipped from that to getting like really high accuracies with my research project, right? I'm looking for like more research. I'm hiring people for my nonprofit and I'm creating greater connections. Like just recently I connected with another nonprofit in India that has access to like 20,000 students basically, and I'm gonna be able to provide like an ML curriculum for all of them. So like I've been grinding on these real world skills because I do think they're genuinely more important. But the thing is, the first thing that's happening is like they're looking at your transcript and they're comparing you to people from your school. And I don't want to just like be read by the admissions officer. Like they like look at my application, they go like throw it in the trash or whatever. Right? So I think the reason I did prioritize coursework within my first year, because I only like okay, like most people had 4 years of high school to like create a profile for college, but I only had 3. Because my first year I was not in the accelerated IB program, and I wasn't really like in my first year of high school I didn't really like prioritize college, right? Because like we just moved here, and it was like a great priority for me to get like more in line with the school system. So I did that first, and within my first year, I already like got at a higher level than everyone based on transcripts. And now my focus is definitely within research. And so
Nice, nice. So, like moving on to like some of your nonprofits. So, what was your overall inspiration for each of the nonprofits that you created? Obviously, we talked tech one. So, how about the Chef for Homeless? That one.
I think my inspiration for like all my nonprofit work is definitely just like my original community. So like growing up in India, there's like a lot of like problems you can very easily see, right? Especially where I grew up. I didn't grow up in the best area as well. And there's like often looting, there's often homelessness, there's like very common like disease or like dead to disease, just like people dead on the street and stuff. And you see these things often, right? And it just makes you like kind of motivated to create like solutions for those problems based off of whatever skill sets you have. So my like first like few voluntary works like getting like food for the homeless and stuff. Those were like more based within like the general problems I had before. I had like the ability to like utilize AI and like better resources or whatever. But now, more recently, they're definitely more based within like applying AI. So like creating AI education for kids or like creating like AI solutions to medical problems and stuff. And those are definitely like a lot more based within my interests as well, right? But everything sprouts from my community, which is also colleges like that too, because there's cohesion in your application, right? Fake, because recently like most people don't have reality in their application, right? And you can easily capitalize off that by showing cohesion. That's like a really good sign that like you are a highly motivated person and like you're like have some motivations or reasoning behind like your like extracurriculars, right? You're not just someone who's like pushed by their like parents or pushed by like social stresses or whatever to like do a bunch of random stuff, basically.
Yep. So in terms of like, more question about the nonprofit space, like basically I think everyone who's trying to compete into the top college have their own nonprofit because it's kind of like,
Mhm.
just a tradition right now. So for someone who doesn't really have like a great story to tell, would you suggest them to like not really invest time in nonprofits since they won't really stand out with other competitors and try and find something else to, grind into?
I mean, honestly, I actually do think so, yes. I think if your nonprofit is highly motivated and you have like a lot of great resources, of course you should do it. And you can find whatever like the reasoning doesn't need to be super like great. Like you can find whatever reasoning you really need, right? Your reasoning could just be like Chinese and in China this is the poverty rate or whatever. Like that's like a pretty decent reason, right? Like it doesn't really matter that much. But the thing is you won't stand out against like the hundreds of thousands of applicants that are Chinese every year, and like they're all like basically just saying the exact same thing you are, because like they're also like don't stand out or whatever, right? So I think honestly, if you don't have like a great motivation or great reasoning behind a nonprofit, if you just don't like really think it would make you stand out that much, I think a really great piece of advice is doing like startup or making a business, right? Those are like more aligned with yourself as well because you have better resources and abilities to do it, which colleges will know basically like, and they will be able to like attest that. But if you get good results, like if your not, like startup gets like big or you're like able to show like good progress or whatever, like if you're able to show ability, that's like a really another like really good way to stand out because people aren't often able to do that with startups, right? Like recent startups, especially by like college applicants, are like not like really ever used because they're not able to like commit to it, right? Like if you're like really committed, you're going to be able to get good results. And doing that to stand out is probably like really good advice right now, especially if you don't have like any common motive or like reasoning behind a nonprofit. So I do suggest that. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yep. So just to wrap this entire conversation up, what is one of the biggest advice I would give to someone? Obviously, you've given us so many great advice in this podcast, which we really all appreciate. But overall, like, what's your one general biggest take?
I think being committed to your craft is probably the most important thing for me. So I think understanding who you are and how you work best in every circumstance to better your craft is like definitely the best way you could like possibly progress, right? And just like that applies everywhere. Like I'll give like some examples from my personal life. So basically what I'm talking about is like for me, like in social scenarios, like I make like a lot of jokes, like I do like a lot of like dumb stuff to have fun. But like that's because like that gives me the ability to like have like the mental like carefreeness to then be able to go home and then spend like 5 hours just working on research or like be able to have my mind like clear and sharp enough that like, oh, like I go to study and like I immediately come up with a solution to a problem I've been having, right? It's like just find a way to like clear your mind to be able to perfect your craft. Like find a way to take your like own basically, you're taking your own brain to like the highest level that it can to perfect your craft. And if you do that, and if you stick with your craft, I think there's nothing else you could really do to get better at it.
Great, amazing advice. All right, I think the pod here, I really appreciate you, Vihaan. I think this is one of the better pods that we had in the Gen Z fast lane. Not saying the
Sure,
other
sure,
one,
sure.
but great advice there. Hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Bye.